Luminescent Platinum is a Gen 4 remake we all deserve, not these trash remakes nobody plays anymore. And the team has been working tirelessly to create an incredibly challenging masterpiece where some Pokemon gain new typings and abilities upon evolving. Gym leaders now have up to 4 different teams they could randomly choose from, meaning we need to be on top of our game, especially because there are surprise random double battles with legendaries. And I thought to myself, what better way to showcase this game than to do a hardcore Nuzlocke where if any Pokemon faints, they have to be boxed forever. With Legends ZA fast approaching and my personal favorites in Meganium and Fralgator finally getting some love, I'll be Nuzlocking this game with Johto Pokemon only, with a twist. You'll see more later, but Johto isn't necessarily considered the powerhouse region, ranking dead last in terms of average base stat totals across all 9 generations. And with no items in battle and a strict level cap, I had to come up with some creative strategies to defeat everything the game threw my way. Yes, both Aaron and Flint from the Elite Four randomly ambush you for some reason. And my cheeks may never unclench again due to what Cynthia put me through. But our journey begins by visiting Lake Verity and running into some guy peacefully talking to himself. Surely he won't be an issue, right? Right? And after telling our mom about it, she gives us a guidebook which has a host of new features we'll be discussing as we go through the run. A bike, a list of outfits to choose from, and of course allows us to take her pet Eevee sitting in the corner. We may or may not be playing the intro twice in order to get both Johto evolutions. Spoiler alert, we did. So clearly we need to find a different way to deal with this strange man, so we go to the next town over and grab a few Pokemon to help us do just that. Inside this briefcase is our true starter of the game, Chikorita, along with Cyndaquil and Totodile, of course. Tell me down below if you're picking Chikorita or Totodile for the new Legends game, or Tepig for some reason, but these 3 starters power us through the first rival fight of the game. Dawn is just packing a Piplup, but of course grass beats water, so with just a couple of magical leaves we're already on our way. We arrive to Jubilife City, talk to some clowns, get our Poketch app, and this is where I find out that this game is going to be a bit harder than I anticipated. Not only do gym leaders have 4 different teams they can choose from, but so can your rival apparently, and I immediately start off on the back foot with Barry. I thought Cyndaquil would be a good lead, but apparently that was a mistake because he led with a Cubone that knows the move Sing? Since when do Cubones know how to sing? Anyways, after KOing him and his Shinx with a magical leaf, we need to switch to Totodile to take care of his Chimchar, and after 2 water guns we have our first victory. But something tells me it's not always going to be this easy. So we get to Orberg City, and following Pokemon have been fixed by the way, and it's so amazing. Just look how cute this Chikorita is. And we find Roark in the very back of the mines, and I think he's up to something that he shouldn't be because look how he explodes when he sees us. And it's at that moment that we knew we needed to find a new teammate to help us with this fight, because Roark and every other gym leader will have a full party of 6, and there's no way I'm risking any of my 3 starters this early. I go wandering about and pick up a Spinarak. Not really what I was hoping for, so we're gonna play fast and loose with his life. Yeah, I probably could have told you their nicknames, but I bet you can guess the theme in the comments. We arrive at Roark's gym ready to sack our spider and find out that not only Roark, but every gym leader has their ace right beside them. Nice touch. It's revealed that we get team number 3 as he leads with the Jotonian brethren Shuckle, and because he has the sturdy ability, there's nothing we can do about him setting up the stand. And with the held Smooth Rock, it's gonna last for 8 turns instead of 5, which means that they get a special defense boost and I take chip damage. And I find out the hard way that I wasn't gonna one-shot him anyways. We're using Bite here because Totodile has the Strong Jaw ability, which essentially makes it a 90 base power move. But we're also going for the flinch chance. And out of 5 possible chances, we only get 1 flinch, and Totodile has been taking quite a bit of damage. But finally the Shuckle thing goes down and Luleep comes out next. I don't think I'm in KO range, so I stay in with an Ice Fang to get off some pretty big chip damage and just get confused. I was planning on switching anyway to avoid a casualty, but it's even better that I waited a turn because Spinarak only takes a little damage from a quad resistant Mega Drain, and along with the Ice Fang from Totodile, Spinarak can counter back with the Fell Stinger that finishes. Oh, come on, that has to be like 1 HP, and the very thing I was trying to avoid happens. Confusion. But like I said earlier, I'm playing fast and loose with this spider's life, and we risk it for the biscuit, and we miraculously break through confusion for the KO, which activates my secret plan. Fell Stinger is a move that grants a +3 attack boost if it's used to KO an opponent. So suddenly, Spinarak's 60 base attack goes to base 150, hitting as hard as a Pokemon like Groudon. And even though we're confused, I still risk it each and every turn because I don't see Spinarak coming to the Elite Four, and how cool would it be if a Spinarak swept a rock type gym? Lunatone comes in next, which pretty much seals Roark's fate as they take super effective damage from Fell Stinger, which grants us yet another attack boost, meaning we're at +6 attack or essentially quadruple attack at this point. One by one, Roark's Pokemon come out and they go right back down to this little spider's wrath. Anorith and Bonsai go down to a single bug bite apiece, and the only real chance to stop stop this rampaging arachnid is his Cranidos, who does manage to outspeed but throws away his opportunity with arguably the most useless move in existence, which means that Spinarak sweep has been completed. I've never used a Spinarak before and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I can't wait to use it again. That was awesome. So the next thing to do on our journey is go to Valley Windworks where Mars and her fat cat are waiting for us. And just so everyone knows what we're up against, in the original games, this thing granted you 666 experience points for defeating it. So we obviously need to make a few upgrades first. The first thing we do with the new level cap is evolve all 3 of our Jotonian starters into Bayleaf, Crocodile, and Quilava. And then we catch ourselves a Crystal Onyx that has the Rock Ice typing, which I'm not sure is better or worse honestly, but it should be good against her Purugly. What, you've never seen a Crystal Onyx before? And no, it's not Johto yet, but it will be in a moment. We also catch a Mareep and evolve her into Flaffy that has the incredible defensive ability Fluffy. Fluffy halves the damage of physical moves that make contact, but doubles the damage of fire moves, which makes her a pretty fantastic defensive pivot, as long as I don't send her in on any fire type moves. We also catch a Hoot Hoot, which funnily enough has the Intimidate ability. You're not intimidating. Oh With the team upgrades done and the key in our possession, it's time to face the first real run stopper of the playthrough. Mars leads with Golbat as I lead with Flaffy. Of course she tries to be annoying with confusion strategies again, but we come prepared with a Lumberry to shrug off the confusion, and then take the KO with Charge Beam, which has a 70% chance to raise our special attack by 1 stage when it lands. We use Charge Beam again for what I feel like isn't as much damage as I was expecting, but we do get another boost. But unfortunately get confused without a Lumberry, so now we gotta risk it for the biscuit again, and even though we make it through, we miss the Charge Beam, because of course. But after a couple of turns, we're able to take down her Bronzor at +2 special attack and then take out her Yanma the same. Isn't this move supposed to be 90% accurate? Anyway, we take the KO and now the Devil Cat is out. I know Purugly loves to use Fake Out on the first turn, so I go into Onyx for what I think is going to be a free switch, but of course, my prediction skills are wrong and she uses the much stronger Facade for huge damage. And it's only now that I'm realizing Onyx wasn't at the level cap, which is probably why it did so much damage. Onyx's main job was to try and lower this thing's defense with the Rock Smash 2, but he only gets to use 1, sadly without the defense drop, because of course she lands the 60% accurate Hypnosis. How does she land it first try, but I miss a 90% accurate move twice? I don't want to ruin my chances of a future Steelix, so I switch to Hoot Hoot, who drops her attack with Intimidate, but Facade still does over half. Not wanting to lose my Intimidator, I make yet another switch to Plan C, Bayleaf. And I'll be the first to admit that I got a bit too fancy here because I totally thought that Purugly would just land another Hypnosis immediately, so I just tried to use Growl to lower their attack, but ended up getting off 3 Growls. Their attack is lowered so much that by the time she actually lands a Hypnosis, Aerial Ace does next to nothing. So I stay in, and by the time I wake up, I realize that I probably could have just gotten the KO with a few Magical Leaves, but here we are. So now I gotta switch because I'm risking a crit, and Crocodile gets to come in on a very soft Aerial Ace and then is able to end the battle with an Aqua Jet. Or we just get put to sleep, take a couple of Facades, and finally wake up and end that thing with an Aqua Jet. I can feel the difficulty spiking already, and I know I need to stop making careless mistakes and ensure that every Pokemon I bring to a fight is at the level cap, because at some point I know this is going to punish me. So we save the little girl from her dad or whatever and continue on our journey and find ourselves in Eterna Forest. This is where we meet Cheryl, and she's one of the 4 stat trainers of this region. Shout out to PokeThink for teaching me this, but all her Pokemon when fully evolved have a base HP stat of 144 or more, making all 4 of them in the top 15 bulkiest Pokemon of all time. Like her Drifloon, for example, who survives a stab super effective Charge Beam from Flaffy, and Makuhita, who survives a stab super effective extra sensory from Hoot Hoot. Yeah, Hoot Hoot got the psychic typing in this game. And Wailmer, who, you guessed it, needs to take 2 Magical Leaps before going down. But honestly, this fight was pretty manageable until this thing came out. Yeah, just look at these stats. The second highest HP stat in the game, only beaten by their evolution. She takes me not 1, not 2, but 3 of my Pokemon to take her out. Bayleaf did absolutely nothing. Crocodile, of course, gets paralyzed on the first possible opportunity, and she gets to heal herself with Soft Boiled. I had to resort to using Onyx and Icicle Spear and just hoping I landed all 5 hits. I even used a Coil to raise our attack and accuracy a few times, and we finally take her down after a full 15-minute battle. That thing was a menace. Who would have thought a Chansey would have given me so many problems? But now it's over with, and with Cheryl's help, we're able to cruise through the forest and arrive in Eterna City. We go looking around for the gym, and oh, Hello there, Cynthia. Yeah, I was just thinking about you. Oh, now that sounds weird. I was just wondering if you knew what this Pokemon was? Yeah, it is Rhydon. And you should ride on this. She tells us that we need to go find Gardenia somewhere in the slopes of the mountains, and we take this time to prepare the most anti-grass team ever assembled. We start with the Zubat, who we love on preciously as they evolve into Golbat and then into Crobat, which is a monster this early in the game. We take advantage of the snow and catch a Sneasel, who should be amazing for us, being a strong and fast physical attacker. And with the new level cap, we're able to evolve our precious Spinarak into Ariados and Hoo-Hoo into Noctowl. So we find Gardenia daydreaming in the middle of a snowstorm, and she hurries back to meet us in the gym. And I must say that this gym looks beautiful. This entire gym was remade by the Luminescent team, and they did an amazing job recreating the feel from Platinum. But after smashing through the gym puzzle, it's time to face Gardenia and her Roserade. Looks like I got Team 4, and she actually leads with her ace Roserade and I with Sneasel. She starts with the Toxic Spikes and I with a useless taunt that I was really hoping would prevent the Toxic Spikes. But I guess Gardenia has been feeding fertilizer to her plant. So with that turn wasted, we do what we should have done on the first turn and use an Ice Shard to do over half, and now we take a Grass Knot that we definitely could have avoided. Hopefully that's not going to matter in this fight. Right, so we use Ice Shard again and take the KO and recover a pitiful amount of HP with our held Shell Bell that heals back an eighth of the damage dealt. And I'm even more disappointed at the amount of recovery after taking the KO on Grovyle, who is quad weak to ice with the added dragon typing. Bayleaf comes out next, and my taunt actually means something as they can't use Reflect on this turn, which means that my Ice Shard still does full damage and I can stay relatively healthy upon taking the KO. Wormadam is out next, so I take this opportunity to switch into our newly acquired Crobat and risk him to a super effective hidden power. Surely these careless switches won't bite me in the butt later on, but we're able to chain 2 kills with a wing attack on Wormadam and a quad effective U-turn to not only KO Shiftry, but pivot Sneasel back in. I did admittedly forget about the Toxic Spikes, but that shouldn't be a problem since Alolan Exeggutor is out next and is also quad weak to ice. They do have a pretty high HP stat, but we launch another stab quad effective Ice Shard to get the... oh no. Okay, surely the Shell Bell gets us a lot of HP back, right? And surely we survive that? Well, I guess this is the first death of the run. I'm devastated. I thought that for sure a stab technician boosted quad effective Ice Shard was enough for the KO. That's a 360 base power move with all the multipliers. But we must go on, so I send in the KO leader of the run so far, and Ariados avenges our sweet baby Sneasel that would have made an awesome Weavile. Oh yeah, I guess it's a good time to tell you that because Mega Evolutions are coming up, I'll be using some special forms of Pokemon as a tribute of Legend ZA coming up, and Weavile would have been one of them. But for now, it's time to head to the Galactic Building and face yet another run killer, Jupiter. But first, we need to beef up the team. I'm trying to showcase as many Pokemon and strategies as possible, so if that's something you enjoy, let me know by leaving a like or even subbing to the channel. It's free, it helps me out, and lets me know that you want to see more content like this. So we pick up a Chinchou and evolve them into Lantern, and a Sentret to evolve into Furret, a Wooper to evolve into Quagsire, and a Ladybot to evolve into a Ladian, who actually got some sick buffs in this game. They trade the Flying type for the Fighting type, get the ability Iron Fist, and a major boost to their attack stat. But of these encounters, it's Lantern we start with against Jupiter's Golbat, and of course we get Poison to start the battle. But at least we're able to take the KO with the single Thunderbolt. Against her Sableye, we send in Furret for one of the coolest techs I've ever used. Furret is completely immune to every single one of Sableye's attacks. We go for a Focus Punch, which negatively out-prioritizes Metal Burst, and are able to pick up the one-hit KO with the fighting move and our ability Scrappy. Tangela comes out next, and I brought our brand new Ladian to counter this thing, who comes in on a resisted Mega Drain and can take the KO with 2 Bug Bites. Now her ace Skuntank comes in, and for some reason I thought we'd be faster, but I definitely just risked our new and improved Ladian to a crit. And after narrowly surviving, we can get some HP back with a Drain Punch. Skuntank is completely out of range, and I'm not willing to risk Ladian's life yet. So Quagsire is able to come in on a resisted Poison Jab and take the KO with just a few Mud Shots. Jupiter wasn't that hard this time, but I know it's going to be a different story when we reach the top of Spear Pillar for a dreaded 12v12 double battle. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves because Cynthia is so impressed with our victory that she's offering to give us her eggs. Oh, that's a massive misunderstanding. She just gave us an egg containing a Pokemon? You don't want to ride on this? Togepi, who immediately evolves into Togetic after showing them some affection, then ultimately into Togekiss, who's going to do wonders for us in our next fight. We also evolve our Onix into Steelix and start making our way to our next destination, Wayward Cave. And this is where we meet our next stat trainer, Myra, who has a terrifying team specializing in special attack. But it's my Togekiss that gets to assert their superiority and show off their ability Serene Grace, which doubles the chances of secondary secondary effects happening. And wouldn't you know it, we get the Omni boost on our very first Ancient Power where every single stat raises at once. But my luck is immediately countered when this stupid duck comes in and traces my ability, meaning that Charge Beam will now always grant a special attack boost if it lands. I try to paralyze them with Thunder Wave and paraflinch them with Serene Grace Air Slashes, which if I did my math right is only a 26% chance to move. But of course they break through both times and I'm left with only a third of my HP when they go down. An even bigger buzzkill comes in next because they're able to break through paralysis and put a curse on me, ending my potential sweep with Cynthia's egg. The odds of Haunter and Porygon 2 to break through every paralysis and flinch chance is just an 11% chance. Lucky me. So now I need a switch, and of course this thing uses Double Team as I do, but Croconaw has had enough and ends its life with a crunch. Now Kadabra comes out and appears to be a good matchup since Croconaw now has a dark typing, but with a held life orb, there's no way Croconaw is going to survive a Dazzling Gleam. So I switch into Steelix, who tanks it relatively well with the held Assault Vest. But I was not prepared for how much a Grass Knot would do. Definitely dead to a crit, but I think I got unlucky enough in this fight and Steelix can finish the fight with a now double power payback. We help Myra find her scarf or whatever and then make haste for Heart Home City. But on the way, Dawn has different plans for us. Little does she know that in the last 2 seconds, we were able to evolve our Croconaw into Feraligatr with the new level cap. This fight is quite uneventful as we have counters for every one of our Pokemon. Feraligatr takes down Mamoswine after of course missing the initial range for the KO. Togekiss can take down her Sexy Rabbit, Steelix can destroy just about any fairy in his way, and Bayleaf shows Prinplup that Johto is the land of the better starters with a few energy balls. Who would have known that penguins don't like taking balls to the face? So after taking out Dawn, we proceed into Mount Coronet where again we meet up with this Cyrus guy and I guess we're nervous and just can't stop moving? I don't know, definitely not my best showing, but you know who has a worse showing just before Heart Home City? Aaron. Yes, for whatever reason, a member of the Elite Four comes to challenge you before you even have 3 gym badges in this game, and he gets to feel the wrath of my newest team member we just picked up, Magcargo. His Ariados leads with a useless Sticky Web, but little does he know we're not switching. We're staying in and using Shell Smash to double our speed in both attack stats. And now that we outspeed, we try and fish for another Omni boost with Ancient Power because no matter what, we're not KOing due to their held Focus Sash. And Ariados actually gets burned from our Flame Body ability, meaning that they take themselves out. Pinsir comes out next and goes right back out to a Lava Plume. Mothim gets KO'd from a quad effective Ancient Power, and somehow his Dustox is actually tanky enough to survive a hit, but throws their turn away with Bug Buzz. Look how pathetic this damage is. They get finished off, and then of course Scizor goes down to a quad effective Fire move, and then Drapion gets outsped and oh no. We barely survive in the red from a sniper boosted critical hit Night Slash, but Magcargo clutches up, tanks the hit, and retaliates with an Earth Power to thankfully pick up the 1-hit KO. That was a close one, but honestly wouldn't have been that upset if we lost Magcargo anyway because spoiler alert, they don't make any other appearances. We arrive in Heart Home City and need to go find Fantina because gym leaders just aren't at their gym anymore in this region. So we head to the contest hall and, Mom, you're embarrassing me. Yes, I've been changing my underwear every time I see Cynthia. Now go, please. I don't want Fantina seeing me with my mom. What? No, I don't live with my mom. Do you know what this Pokemon is? What kind of gym challenge is this? Mom, what's 3 + 5 + 7? So Fantina is a ghost type gym leader and of course has 4 different teams that she can bring, which means that it's encounter time. We use a Moonstone to evolve Eevee into Umbreon. Yes, a Moonstone instead of annoying friendship evolutions. We pick up a Stantler and evolve them into Weirdeer for a ghost immunity, and lastly we evolve a Murkrow into Honchkrow. I know technically Murkrow and Weirdeer aren't Gen 2 Pokemon, but it's my Mega Evolution twist to give me a better chance at completing this run. So we meet back up with Fantina and her Miss Magus, and she leads with a Dusclops, which means that we got team number 2. Umbreon taunts immediately to block all the nonsense that Dusclops can do, and then we use Snarl to lower its special attack, which actually just activates its red card, and they just end up shadow punching my Steelix with a base defense stat of 200.
Congratulations. You played yourself.
I switch Umbreon back in to use Taunt to prevent Pain Split again and just use Snarl until they go down. Gengar comes in and does some pretty big damage with a Dazzling Gleam, but I really wanted to use Snarl to lower this thing's damage output. I'm unsure if I can stay in at this point, so I switch to Steelix, who takes the resisted hit quite well. But my big brain play is to actually bait a Shadow Ball to get our newly evolved Weirdeer in for free, and it works. Now Dazzling Gleam doesn't do that much damage, we can get the 1-hit KO with a Zen Headbutt. Spiritomb comes out, and I know we can't take this thing down in one hit, so I switched to Haunch Crow on a resisted foul play that still does quite a lot. I'm dead to a resisted crit, but this was my planned counter, so I just go for an acrobatics. But then Fantina makes the blunder of the century by going for a pain split that doesn't even recover that much, but also uses our citrus berry. Not only do we get recovered out of this, but this means that acrobatics now doubles in power, giving us the range for the KO. And it also gives us a moxie boost that increases our attack by 1 stage. Driftwind comes in to set up a stockpile, but it's no use because a +1 stab super effective Night Slash is still enough for the OHKO. And now we get another moxie boost. Sableye comes in, and instead of, I don't know, trying to burn us with a Will-O-Wisp to reduce our damage output, goes for a resisted Shadow Sneak? Yeah, they get KO'd by a single acrobatics and give us our 3rd attack boost of the fight. Miss Mages comes in, is rocking the new and improved fairy type, and can definitely outspeed and KO with the stab super effective Dazzling Gleam. But we go for the priority sucker punch for the clean one-shot and pick up our 3rd gym badge. That's not quite how I envisioned the fight going, and it's actually much cleaner because I had planned a few sacks, but we get to continue our journey with the full team. You lucked out this time, you weird deer. Is it just my OCD, or is it the dumbest thing that they couldn't make the 3rd gym badge the actual 3rd slot in our case? Like, why is it all the way over there? But with the new level cap, it's time for some more encounters! So we're able to evolve our Bayleaf into Meganium, which gets the fairy typing upon evolution and the completely broken triage ability. This grants a +3 priority for any HP restoring move like Giga Drain and Draining Kiss. We also catch a Houndour and evolve them into Houndoom, which gets the crazy ability Adaptability. This changes stabs from a 1.5 boost to a 2x boost, which means that flamethrowers are now doing 180 base power damage. Crazy. We evolve Flaffy into Ampharos, which gets the dragon typing. Not sure how this thing is a dragon, but it is a really good defensive typing, providing some handy resistances. And then we got inspired by Fantina, so we pick up a Mischievous of our own and evolve them into Miss Magus. And last but not least, we evolve Quilava into the Hisuian variant of Typhlosion, which is an incredible Pokemon with the Ghost Fire typing. But before we can make any more progress, we of course get attacked by our rival again. And I was a bit unprepared for this fight. Barry leads with an Ursaring, who is now the normal ground typing, and after an energy ball takes him down to half, I thought I'd get fancy and use Draining Kiss to not only get the KO, but restore some HP too. But of course, I apparently don't know how to do calcs, and they live in the red, which means they're able to get off another slash that I unnecessarily took. So Viper comes out, and I know is wanting to go for a poison move, so I switch to Steelix for free, who can take the KO with a stab, sheer force, life orb boosted bulldoze. Croconaw comes out next, and I make the switch back to Meganium on a water move, and wouldn't you know it, I finally get the range with the Draining Kiss. Yeah, the crit definitely mattered, and because we're holding the big root, we get back all of our HP. Magneton's out next, so I go back to Steelix for free on a Thunder Wave, and of course this thing has Sturdy, so I can't take the KO with a single bulldoze. But on the next turn, of all the status conditions that Tri-Attack can induce, I get Frozen. What was that? It seems like it's their only way to hit me though, so I stay in and actually thaw the very next turn and finally take the KO with the bulldoze. I'm on a roller coaster of emotions right now. The big boy Hariyama comes out next, so I switch to Meganium on a knockoff, and she can take the KO with just a couple of Dazzling Gleams. Monferno is his last Pokemon, so I throw my Feraligatr out there to show Barry that it's okay to fully evolve your Pokemon, and he shows Monferno who the best generation of starters are and waterfalls him straight to the face. Immediately after the fight, there's a lady in distress, so we need to make our way to the mansion and see that Team Galactic has taken over the place, and the only way we can save it is with a gimmick battle where we need to defeat 3 Galactic Grunts in 6 turns exactly. Kind of a weird fetish, but after completing it, we find out that for some reason, Gentleman Backlot teamed up with Saturn for a double battle. Of course, there's documents for this fight, but it doesn't mean I looked at them, so we're a little unprepared for this, and so is Barry apparently, because for some reason he leads with an intimidating Staravia that immediately procs Wigglytuff's competitive ability. So this fight starts with Wigglytuff doubling their special attack. Thanks, Barry. And after taking out Bronzong with the Dark Pulse, just look at how much Wigglytuff does to Houndoom. A Wigglytuff! And Barry doesn't even attack, just double teams, and Wigglytuff sees right through it and OHKOs him with a Thunderbolt. But Lantern can come in for free and KO Octillery with an Expert Belt boosted Thunderbolt, and Barry uses Grass Knot on Wigglytuff? Barry, get it together, man. Try like, I don't know, a stab move? Well, I guess it's too late because Toxicroak comes out and KOs him with a Poison Jab as I Volt Switch to pivot into Steelix on an oncoming Moonblast that still does way more than I'd like. Again, thanks, Barry. Yeah, I risk another crit with Steelix on a Drain Punch, but then I use Bulldoze to hit Barry Snorlax because it's not like he's helping me anyways. And Wigglytuff thankfully goes goes for a seeing as Snorlax quiets her with a body slam. Now it's basically a 2v1 against a Raichu, and I thought about staying in, but this Raichu has Surf for some reason. So I switched to Lantern on a Grass Knot for minimal damage, and on the next turn a double up of Bubble Beam and Body Slam is enough to KO the electric rodent. The last Pokemon is an Espeon who goes down after another double up of Signal Beam and Berry. Dude, you could have ended this. So now I need to switch to avoid an unnecessary KO, and I chose Meganium as Snorlax takes a Psychic and Espeon falls asleep. And on the first guaranteed turn of sleep, Meganium can take the final KO with an Energy Ball. See, Barry, that's how it's done. Just finish the fight. And now Mr. Backlot said he had no choice but to battle us? I don't know, man. I mean, you could have just said no, right? And it's not like your team is weak to Saturn's team. Anyway, we make our way to Salacion Town, and oh my goodness, that scared me. I thought we had to battle him again, but thank goodness the only fight you have to do here is Elite Four member Lucian. Yes, you have to battle 3 out of the 4 of these guys before you even get to the Elite Four. How Bertha lucked out is beyond me. And again, this is another double battle that I was quite unprepared for, and in my defense, nor in the doc does it say that this is a double battle. But we do have some pretty good counters. He leads with a Slowking and a Claydol with the Psychic Surge ability, and I lead with Crobat and Houndoom. A Choice Banded U-turn does huge chip damage on Claydol as I pivot into Weird Air and double up with the Dark Pulse to finish that Claydol because I really didn't want them to set up Trick Room. And then Slowking just uses a Future Sight. Exeggutor comes out next, and I start the next turn by pivoting Houndoom out for Lantern, and Weird Air gets the one-hit KO on Exeggutor with a Lunge. And then he gets burnt by Scald because of course I do. Why Slowking didn't use Scald on Houndoom is beyond me, unless he saw the future and knew he'd get the burn. Doesn't matter too much though, because I just switched Weird Air out for Houndoom to take the Future Sight at the end of this turn, and I also pivot Lantern into Crobat because I'm fearing an Energy Ball. But that just goes into Houndoom for some reason, and Slowking sets up a Future Sight that won't end up mattering because Crobat can take the KO on Alakazam with another U-turn and get Typhlosion out as Houndoom KOs the Slowking with a Dark Pulse. And then Typhlosion can rip a Choice Scarf boosted, Adaptability boosted, full power eruption for the double knockout. Absolutely incredible power. For the trouble, we get some heart scales that we really won't be using in this run and continue onwards towards Veilstone City. And then we see Crasher Wake singing as he's leaving Maylene's gym? What's going on here? A half-dressed man singing as he's leaving the house of a gym leader? Something strange seems to be going on here. But we've got nothing better to do, so we march right in. Why do you have a band-aid on your face? Did Discount Nacho Libre do that to you? Okay, so she's a bit standoffish and sends out a Farfetch'd. She is a fighting type in this game, but Crobat's not afraid to hit a woman, and she goes down with just one wing attack. Medicham comes in and wants to get revenge for her fallen comrade, so he U-turns straight into Meganium, who takes a lot more than I thought on a Psychic. But the chip damage from U-turn allows us to take the KO with a triage boosted Draining Kiss, and the held Big Root helps us get back to full HP. Primate comes out now and is threatening a knockout with Iron Tail, so I switch to Lantern, who quad resist it, but he just whiffs. He outspeeds and goes for a close combat that does huge damage before our Berry, and this almost allows us to get the KO with Volt Switch after the defense drops. But we just get Crobat back out there to finish him off with a wing attack. Hitmonlee comes out and falls right into my trap because he goes for a fake out expecting to flinch me, and not only does he take Rocky Helmet damage, but Crobat can't be flinched due to their Inner Focus ability and can catch him on the back foot and KO with a wing attack. Probably the only time Inner Focus has ever come in handy. Heracross comes out now, but let's be real, this thing is quad weak to flying, so she immediately goes down to another wing attack. But now her ace Lucario comes out and threatens huge damage with adaptability boosted flash cannons. Yes, everybody gets that ability in this game, but I think we can live a hit, so I stay in to use a wing attack for some chip damage, and Crobat lives on just 12 HP. That was way too close for comfort. I'm scared of getting picked off by a priority vacuum wave, so I just hard switch into Lantern on a quad resisted flash cannon. But the real play is to try and bait an Aura Sphere to get Miss Magus in for free, and the plan works. So now that Miss Magus outspeeds... Oh no. Just kidding, we had a Focus Sash, and because Miss Magus always lives, she can finish the job with a Moonblast. Only 1 death so far and 4 gym badges completed. Not bad so far. So we continue our journey to get to Pastoria City, and you guessed it, it's encounter time! The first new encounter is Tyrogue, who evolves into Hitmontop by having the exact same attack and defense stat at level 20, but is worth the trouble because they have probably the most broken ability in the game, Contrary, which turns stat drops into stat raises, so while close combat usually lowers the user's defense, this will actually raise both defense stats every time it's used. And then we pick up a Poliwhirl who evolves into the much better Johtonian version Politoed that has the extremely useful Drizzle ability to set up the rain. We expertly dodge trainers on the way, take a few pictures to remember the moment, and of course, this guy named Barry wants to fight. Okay, Barry, let's get this over with. So he leads with Golem as I lead with Hitmontop. First thing we do is use Fake Out to break it sturdy, and then we're free to take the KO with a Stab super effective expert belt boosted close combat. And although we do get the defense boost, Togekiss still sees a KO with Moonblast. So we need to hard switch into Crobat who takes it quite well. We are holding the Assault Vest to boost our special defense, so while we don't get the KO on the first cross poison due to the Kebia berry, we easily survive the extra sensory to get the KO on the very next turn. Yanmega comes out who's holding the Choice Specs and is probably wanting to go for Ancient Power, so I switch into Steelix who quad resists. And then he can counter back with a quad effective Rock Slide for the KO. So Viper comes out next and intimidates my Steelix to lower my attack, and to my dismay, paralyzes me with Glare. Didn't think ground types could get paralyzed. And then Bulldoze does a disappointing amount of damage. But after a few more turns, Steelix ends up winning the battle as his Grass Dragon Sceptile comes out. Meganium walls basically every move he has and can take the KO with a single Moonblast. Now Barry sends out his second starter, the fully evolved Sun Wukong, and I'm expecting some type of fire attack, so I switch to Politoed to set up the rain and weaken the move even further. And now I'm expecting an electric move, so I switch to Ampharos to quad resist the hit and has the fluffy ability, so she takes like 5 damage. Even a close combat doesn't even do a quarter, and after the defense drops, you best believe we Draco drop the first unlucky victim of the run. And after the battle, again, Crasher Wake isn't at the gym. Like, what do gym leaders in the Sinnoh region even do? Isn't this like your only job? And what possible explanation is there for someone singing to themselves in the middle of a rainstorm with their shirt off? I don't know either, but Maylene really seemed to like it because he's still singing after spending time with her. But Wake's gym has permanent rain, which obviously gives him a huge advantage by powering up his water type moves and doubling the speed of his Swift Swim Pokemon, so it's unlikely I'll have the speed advantage. Which means that it's time for more encounters! So we get the Gift Porygon from Eterna City out of our box and evolve them into Porygon 2. It was going to serve as a very bulky pivot, being able to hold the Eviolite to boost both defensive stats by 50% and hopefully use its download ability to give itself a few special attack boosts. And then we go grab ourselves a Horsey and evolve them into a Seadra, and one of the best features about this game is instead of unnecessary trait evolutions, I just need to use a Dragon Scale on Seadra to evolve him into Kingdra. I could never do these trait evolutions as a kid, so it was nice to be able to have a feature as simple as this to use Pokemon I've never been able to use. And Kingdra has the Swift Swim ability to help us even the playing field a bit, and even knows Hurricane, which is 100% accurate in the rain and is the only way I can find to counter that dreaded Dancing Pineapple. So we head to the gym, solve the gym puzzle that always throws me for a loop for some reason, and challenge Wake to get our 5th gym badge. And he finds out the hard way that we're immune to water type moves. Not sure why he used a water move on a water Pokemon, but we counter back with a 100% accurate super effective Thunder for the one-hit KO. Now that stupid Pineapple comes out, and I know I won't live a Seed Bomb, so I make the switch to Porygon 2, who takes it beautifully with the held Eviolite. But it's immediately knocked off as we do some pitiful damage with Charge Beam. At least we get the special attack boost, I guess. But then I get bamboozled as Wake switches Seaking in and Thunderbolt activates their Lightning Rod ability for a special attack boost. Rookie mistake. So I switch to Quagsire, who's also immune to water moves, to get off a Yawn, and he does huge damage with Ice Beam. And thank goodness he falls asleep after that Earthquake, because things could have gotten spicy. But now Wake switches Ludicolo back in on Resisted Earthquake, but I'll take any damage I can get on this thing. We're definitely dead to another Seed Bomb again, so I make this switch to Kingdra, who takes it reasonably well, and then we're able to outspeed with our Swift Swim ability and take the KO on this stupid thing with the Hurricane. Probably should have just done that in the first place. But Gorybus is his next Pokemon, and he falls victim to the second Draco drop of the run. The Sleeping Seaking comes back out, and I feel the need to set up for the end game, so I get Lantern back out there as Seaking takes their first guaranteed turn of sleep, and then gets blasted with a Signal Beam for another KO. Tentacruel's next, but goes down to another Stab, super effective. Come on, why is Tentacruel always bulkier than I remember? But I guess it doesn't matter too much because they just do a little bit of damage and we get to actually take the KO on the next turn. This brings out his ace Floatzel, who definitely outspeeds with some of the most min-max stats I've ever seen. And because he's so frail, he actually goes down to a single Thunder from Lantern, winning us our 5th gym badge of the run. Actually quite the clean fight, and yes, Wake, now you're free to go back to Maylene if you want. But our celebration is cut short because immediately after leaving the gym, we have to go chase down a Grunt who for some reason thinks he can take me down with just one Toxicroak? I mean, look, even his Toxicroak is scared of Crobat. How did he think he stood a chance? Oh, hey Cynthia. Yeah, I did just defeat that grunt all by myself. Oh, what's this? You want to go on a date near the Psyduck? Yes, absolutely. I'd love nothing more than that. Meet you there. Oh, what's that? You want to go somewhere even more private? Your grandma's house? Yes, absolutely. Meet you there. Dawn, come on. Can't you see I'm trying to meet Cynthia's grandmother? So she leads with Alakazam as I lead with Crobat, and a choice banded U-turn is enough to get the KO. I absolutely love Crobat as a speedy pivot, and I hope nothing bad ever happens to you. I pivot into Feraligatr as she sends out Flareon, and I think that I have the speed and type advantage, but since when does Flareon know close combat? And how did they outspeed? I don't even know what just happened, but thankfully Feraligatr can get the KO with just a single waterfall. Now Lopunny comes out, and I obviously need to switch, so I send Crobat back in, and she locks herself in to do some pitiful damage with Jump Kick due to their held choice band. And I lock myself into Wing Attack, which is good enough for the one-shot. Mamoswine is out next, and I think I'm dead to pretty much anything if it connects, so I hard switch to Steelix on a quad-resisted Stone Edge. I think Steelix is bulky enough to take an Earthquake, and oh my goodness, that's the second time this fight I almost lost one of my Pokemon. But good thing Steelix is actually good in this game and can get the KO with just a single stab, Sheer Force boosted Iron Head. Now Clefable comes out, and Steelix would normally be pretty good against any fairy type, but with just 14 HP, I have to make the switch, so I go into Typhlosion on a resisted Moonblast. And then we just let an Eruption rip for the one-hit KO. This leaves Dawn with her last remaining Pokemon, Empoleon. I'm expecting a Surf, so we go into the Dragon-type Ampharos to resist the hit and can counter back with a critical hit of our own to get the one-shot. And after doing the calcs, that crit definitely mattered, but that's not what's important right now. What's important is, hi Cynthia's grandma. Yes, your granddaughter is something special, and I want to ask something. This guy again? Why is everybody trying to block me? These fights with Cyrus get increasingly more difficult as the game goes on, and this fight is just the beginning. He leads with a Crobat of his own, but without a choice band or a super effective move, our newly evolved Espeon can take the KO with a single Psychic. Yeah, I got a second Eevee and evolved it into Espeon on the way because all the evolutions are amazing. Comment your favorite down below. Mine's Shiny Umbreon. But this brings out Chatot, who is actually quite strong in this game, but just completely whiffs a Hyper Voice as I bring in Typhlosion, and then we can rip another Eruption for another KO. This brings out Honchkrow, threatening a Night Slash, so I bring in Feraligatr, who takes it reasonably well. They're locked into a resisted move, and we can take the KO with an Ice Punch. I love the way Honchkrow faints, by the way. Arcanine comes out to get an Intimidate, and I'm not trying to lose my Feraligatr, so I make the switch into Steelix, expecting a close combat. And this time I know I'm always safe to a crit, but I need the defense drop so I can KO him with a Shadow Ball from Typhlosion, who comes in on a Flare Blitz, which definitely does more than I thought it would. And due to the recoil damage from Flare Blitz and the defense drops, we're now free to take the KO with a Choice Scarf adaptability boosted Shadow Ball. Magnezone's out next, and I'm a bit concerned that a Shadow Ball won't one-shot, and if they choose Mirror Coat, I'd lose my Typhlosion. So instead, I just switched my Mismagius on a Thunder Wave. Guess I could have just stayed in. But with a held Focus Sash, we're always safe to a Flash Cannon, and thankfully we can get off a Mystical Fire to lower their special attack and pop their Air Balloon, which means we can go to Steelix, who takes much less damage now and can get the KO with the Bulldoze. But now Cyrus's ace comes out, and he's a scary one. He's holding a Focus Sash, so he always needs to be hit at least twice and has the Technician ability to power up his moves even more. But if that's not enough, he can also punish me by using Swords Dance if I make a hasty decision. Man, the things I would do with a Weavile.
If I had one!
So I think the best counter is Feraligatr, and of course I get punished with the Swords Dance. And a resisted Feint Attack does huge damage that definitely would have KO'd with a crit. But at least we get him down to his Focus Sash, but what do I do now? He literally outspeeds everything on my team, and just look how beat up my team is. So I think that my only out is to send in Typhlosion and hope he doesn't click Feint Attack. But he clicks Ice Shard, and it reveals that Typhlosion is gone if he clicks it again. So now I'm basically in the same situation. I don't really have any other options, so I just cross my fingers and hope that the AI doesn't realize I'm holding a Choice Scarf, and it works. We thankfully outspeed and can get the KO with a Scorching Sands to do this battle deathless. If you think this battle is intense, just wait till you see the Distortion World. You know, Grandma, I'm starting to wonder if your granddaughter is even worth it. Every time she asks me to do something, someone is trying to fight me. So I just need to take some time and blow off some steam and go to the next destination, Renegade Park. And Professor Oak is here? Didn't didn't think I'd see him here, but it's revealed that the main reason we're here is because we have to battle the Castle Valet Derek. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but just look at this team. A Metagross and an Entei for an ace. I don't really know why we're battling this, but here we go. He starts with Gallade and I with Espeon. We use a Pixelate boosted Hyper Voice to not quite get the KO, and he retaliates with the Night Slash that does huge damage, but we're always safe here due to a held Focus Sash. We take the KO on the next turn. He sends out his Staraptor next, which threatens a Reckless boosted Brave Bird. So we switch into Ampharos, who takes it exceptionally well. On the next turn, we take a close combat still above half before the defense drops allow us to KO with a single Thunderbolt. This fluffy ability is busted. Now the pseudo legendary Metagross comes out and threatens an Earthquake, so we Volt Switch into Honchkrow, who's immune, and then can take the KO with the Night Slash with the help from the chip damage from Ampharos. We get our Moxie boost as Empoleon comes out, but this tanky Penguin barely takes half from our attack, and it looks like we did some pitiful damage after his berry. And of course, he connects with the Hydro Pump instead of an Ice Beam, and there goes my Yachi Berry strategy. And I think I probably should have just stayed in here, but I tried to set up for the Alakazam that's out next by sending out Typhlosion. But we get hit with a critical hit Ice Beam that freezes. So I don't really know what else to do here but send in Ampharos, and my goodness, that was close. How did he hit 3 Hydro Pumps in a row? Whatever. So now we just take the KO with the Thunderbolt. But now we're in a very bad position as Alakazam comes out next. And with some pretty stellar coverage, we don't really have a good switch. So now we gotta steer, and I think I found a pretty good angle. I start by switching in Typhlosion to take a resisted Dazzling Gleam, and now that we're baiting a Psychic, we can get Honchkrow in for free. And thankfully, he can take the KO with a Stab Priority Sucker Punch. But now his freaking Entei comes out and can KO with an Extreme Speed, so first we switch to Politoed to set up the rain and weaken his fire moves. And after surviving a Stone Edge, another move with some poor accuracy that they actually land somehow, we're able to get the one-hit KO with the Stab Rain Boosted Scald. For anyone who's wondering, the odds of hitting 3 Hydro Pumps, a critical hit Ice Beam that freezes, and a Stone Edge was a 0.2% chance, about 1 in 500 times. Good to know that my good luck is just continuing on this run, but surely my chances with Cynthia are higher than that, right? So in pursuit of impressing Cynthia with our gym badge skills, we head to Canalave City where, you guessed it, another berry fight, as if we didn't just battle him 5 minutes ago. We're gonna skip this one since it's pretty straightforward, but to summarize, Crobat gets a KO with Wing Attack, Steelix gets 2 KOs, one on Seviper with the Bulldoze and one on Fearow with a Rock Slide, Typhlosion gets a KO with the Shadow Ball, Meganium KOs Sceptile the same way she did last time, and Infernape gets KO'd by Ampharos, who drops yet another Draco. Yeah, the rain's up and I could have just taken the KO with a Scald, but I'm trying to get the record for the most amount of Dracos in a playthrough, and that was number 3, the second on Infernape. I don't really know what the record is, but of course I find out that there's yet another gym leader who's not at their gym, and to find him we need to take a boat to Iron Island. BDSP may not get much love from the community, but the graphics to me are honestly quite beautiful. Just look at this water. So we find Byron chilling in a house, but in order for him to respect us enough, we need to go through all of Iron Island, which means that we need to face Riley first, the physical attack stat trainer whose team is quite stacked. And as I say this, his Absol does some pitiful damage with Play Rough on my Togekiss as we get the one-hit KO with the Moonblast. This sends out the second Metagross in 3 fights, and we obviously can't stay in, so we switch to Feraligatr on a resisted Meteor Mash. And to my surprise, after all the one-shot misses we've had, Feraligatr's Crunch is actually enough to get the one-shot. Pretty impressive for a mon as bulky as Metagross. Ursaring is out next and also gets one-shot by a Waterfall, but don't get too excited about one-shots because as I switch in Typhlosion for free on a missed Hammer Arm, we miss the range by what must be 1 HP, of course. And then Riley has the big brain idea to send in Salamence on a resisted Eruption that does over half. Kind of a good thing for me because I wasn't sure how I would take that thing down and planned to sack my Hitmontop. Nothing, so we're able to take 2 back-to-back KOs by just spamming Eruption to finish off both his Salamence and his Slaking. Actually make that 3 KOs in a row because Typhlosion is still out against Lucario, who has absolutely nothing to hurt us. I don't know how I would have done that fight if he didn't sack his Salamence, but typical Beefcake Riley prioritizes Brawn over Brain. With Riley's help, we're able to go through the entirety of Iron Island as he keeps our Pokemon healthy, and we take on Team Galactic, and finally Byron sees us as a worthy opponent as he heads back to the gym. Kind of a slap in the face for him to see me as a worthy opponent, opponent because I don't see him as a worthy opponent at all. He gets absolutely obliterated in this fight. The only trouble we have is with his first Pokemon, Bastiodon, who is ironically usually his ace. It takes 2 Dark Pulses to take them out, and they actually do quite a bit of damage on us with Thunderbolt. But they go down soon enough, and as Bronzong comes in, they go right back down to an adaptability boosted Dark Pulse. Probopass comes in next and threatens a Body Press, but if you guessed we'd switch to Typhlosion to dodge move completely, you would be right. And then it's just an Eruption Sweep from here. But we take Magnezone out first because I guess Byron learned how to battle from Riley and switched them in for some reason. Now we all know that Scizor doesn't stand a chance against a fire move since he's quad weak to it. Probopass is a bit cheekier having Sturdy, so we'd always have to hit him at least twice, but with this moveset, he can't hurt us at all. And with our very last Eruption PP, we're able to take out Steelix in one hit to earn us our 6th badge of the run. And although we have 6 badges at this point, we're only about halfway through this run, and of course we have the scariest fights ahead of us. So we need to pick up a few encounters! But not before Barry interrupts us, of course, and essentially forces us to go to the library. And after the earth trembles from Barry's stupidity, we learn that we need to go to Lake Valor immediately. So we take our time and mosey on over to catch ourselves a Piloswine who we get to evolve into a Mamoswine. And they have the ability Thick Fat to essentially get rid of a fire type weakness and has the ability to use stab priority ice shards to pick off any low HP opponent. Then we pick up a Scyther who we get to evolve into a Scizor by just using a Metal Coat. Man, I love this feature. And they get to use stab technician boosted bullet punches that essentially equal to a priority move with 90 base power. So he's going to be quite a bit of help. Both of our new teammates come with us to Lake Valor and just look at all these Magikarp lying around. What were they planning on doing to these things? But after navigating through these almost dead fish, it's time to take on Commander Saturn, who has one of the most threatening teams of the run so far. He leads with yet another Bronzong, and I lead with Feraligatr, who can immediately get the one-shot with a crunch. And then he has the high IQ play to send in a Rhydon, who falls to a quad effective waterfall. Octillery comes out next and threatens a KO with an energy ball, so we send in Ampharos to resist it and are able to OHKO with a Thunderbolt. But this is where things get a little bit dicey. He sends out his Magic Guard Life Orb Alakazam, and I attach an Assault Vest to Amphi to always ensure we survive a Dazzling Gleam. Oh my goodness, even if it crits. But now we're able to slow Volt Switch and get Scizor in for free, who can take the KO with a priority Bullet Punch. And now his speed boosting Sharpedo comes out next. I really thought he would use Protect on the first turn to get a turn of speed boost, so I try to set up a Swords Dance to punish them. But of course, he just uses a Liquidation and then uses Protect, because of course that would happen to me. But luckily, we barely survive a second Liquidation and are able to take the KO with a U-turn and pivot into Mamoswine for their debut against Toxicroak. And after a lucky miss Gunk Shot, we're able to bring Toxicroak down to their sash with a Bulldoze that also lowers their speed. This also allows us to out-prioritize on the next turn with an Ice Shard for the KO. Not as clean as I'd like it, but I'll take any fight deathless at this point. So now we head to Lake Verity to find out Professor Rowan and Dawn are not competent enough to take care of Mars, so we have to do it ourselves. And again, her team got some massive upgrades. She leads with probably my favorite Pokemon of the run, and I send in Ampharos. They go for a useless taunt, and I use Thunderbolt to bring them down to Sash. And to avoid being KO'd on the next turn, they U-turned into Bronzong, who takes over half from a Thunderbolt. I wasn't sure how I was going to deal with this Bronzong as I was theory crafting, but this works out great, and we can just take the KO with the second Thunderbolt. Thanks, Mars. Out comes Kangaskhan next, who has their mega ability Parental Bond. So when we switch to Meganium, we essentially take 2 Earthquakes, but it doesn't matter that much since we resist it. And on the next turn, we can out-prioritize with the Stab Giga Drain for almost half, and they retaliate with the Body Slam that of course gets the paralysis. I'm not going to risk my favorite starter of the run so far, so I switch to Steelix, who tanks it way better. And of course, we don't outspeed, so we have to take an Earthquake that doesn't do nearly as much as I thought, and we can get the KO with a super effective Body Press using our base 200 defense stat to deal damage. Now arguably her biggest threat, Porygon Z, comes out, and I know I can't take a Fire Blast, so I switch into Feraligatr, who takes it reasonably well. But the real reason we went to Feraligatr is because we want to Beta Thunder to get Ampharos in, who quad resist it, but they just straight up miss. I know we're gonna get hit with an Ice Beam at this point, but I don't have another play at this point, and I did give her the Assault Vest to take it somewhat well, and along with the chip damage from the Life Orb, we're able to get the KO with, oh my goodness. I know I should have just dropped a Draco, but now we're in a sticky situation where this robot duck can literally go for any move, and I'm not sure which one they're gonna pick. So now I make the decision to switch into Typhlosion, who resists and or is immune to the majority of their moves, and thankfully this thing just takes itself himself out with an Ice Beam, and no freeze this time. Crobat comes out next, and although they're quite speedy, Typhlosion is still hanging on to their Choice Scarf, and Eruption can take yet another KO. Yanmega comes out, and of course they suffer the same fate and go down to another stab super effective Eruption. But now Mars's Fat Cat comes out, and we are most definitely dead to a knockoff, so I send in my most expendable team member who actually just ends up getting in for free on a failed Protect. Like, why would you do that? Now she goes for a Toxic to try and Toxic stall my team, but I knock off her leftovers to prevent any passive healing on their end. And after a turn of Protect and some more Toxic damage, we take an enormous amount of damage from Body Slam that can't paralyze, thankfully. And then we can retaliate with the close combat that doesn't get the KO. That must be like 1 HP. And the sad reality is that without the KO and this battle continuing for one more turn, the Toxic damage is enough to take down our sweet Ladian. They may have only gotten 2 KOs in this run. Who am I kidding? I don't really care. Meganium comes in and breaks through paralysis like the goat she is and ends that fat cat's life with a draining kiss. Yeah, Ladian's dead, but another day, another dollar, am I right? And after helping out our incompetent rival, we need to go to Snowpoint City to help out my other incompetent rival. But not before tracking down yet another gym leader, because once again, they're not at the gym. So we need to go to Snowpoint Temple and do a double battle before entering. And I'm not going to show this fight, but it's pretty cool that they also have an all Johto team. But I show them which Johto team is superior. Take that, Blissey. After the battle's over, we enter the temple to do an ice puzzle. Yeah, I struggle with this stuff. How am I supposed to know what to do here? And then her stupid Lucario is in the way. But thank goodness we don't actually have to fight Regigigas and we can get straight to the gym fight. Candice's gym is permanent hail, which means our team will take 1/16 of our max HP every single turn. Also allows for 100% accurate blizzards and activates her Glaceon Slush Rush ability to double their speed, which would be quite scary. So I need to pick up one last encounter for this gym, the pseudo-legendary Tyranitar. Well, technically a Larvitar who eventually evolves into a Tyranitar, but with the level cap being at 56, we can legally bring this monster to the fight. And for some reason, I went with their ability Intimidate instead of Sandstream to cancel out the hail. I'm not sure what I was thinking. And after struggling through yet another ice puzzle, just how many puzzles are in this game? We make it to Candice to ask her a very important question. Candice, so she leads with Lapras and I lead with Scizor. They don't have any real way to do damage against me, so I take this time to set up a Swords Dance as they just Dragon Dance. A lot of dancing going on, I guess. We use Bullet Punch on the next turn that almost KOs, but then comes the most questionable decision I've ever seen. They heal back up with a Wiki Berry, but she attached the berry that confused her own Pokemon? Why would you do that? But this turn just gets wasted as she breaks through confusion and goes for another useless Dragon Dance as Scizor punches her in the face for the KO. Glalie comes out next, who is part Rock type in this game and easily goes down to a quad effective Bullet Punch. Mamoswine comes out next and poses a much bigger threat. Just kidding, they go down to a Bullet Punch too, but out comes Glaceon, who also goes down to a single Bullet Punch. And in all seriousness, this Delibird poses a huge threat. They have the ability Prankster and the move Destiny Bond, which means that if I go for a Bullet Punch for the KO and they use Destiny Bond and outspeed me, they can take down my precious Scizor with them. So as the turn starts, I realize that I probably could have just gone for the KO, but I just use U-turn to bring out Hitmontop and they use Drill Peck, which nearly gets the one shot. But the plus side is that Hitmontop can out prioritize their priority and KO with a fake out. This puts me in a perfect position as she brings out her Frostlass because they're holding the choice specs. I use Detect to scout out what move they'll use and she reveals that she's going for Psychic. This allows me to bring in Tyranitar for free and Frostlass can't do a thing except spam Psychic, which we're immune to, which means that Tyranitar can get the KO with a stab super effective Crunch. That's our 7th gym badge obtained, and again, we've done it deathless. We did have a near casualty, but let's just forget about that because we need to go back to Veilstone City and invade Team Galactic's HQ to find a scientist watching a trailer about the Nintendo Switch 2. I'd like to get my hands on one too, but that's not why we're here. We do run into Cyrus after opening the door with a special key, but we are gonna skip this fight because this one was pretty straightforward and no close calls. But this fight with Saturn gets a little bit dicier. We go straight to the basement where these freaks are running experiments on Pokemon. Not cool, Commander Saturn. Get ready for the rematch of the century. He leads with yet another Bronzong and I lead with Umbreon this time. We start off with a taunt to prevent them from using a light screen and then use Will-O-Wisp, which still lowers the damage output of Body Press. And then my favorite evolution starts to show off and gets the flinch with a Dark Pulse and then the KO with one more Dark Pulse. I just love shiny Umbreon. But she's not done showing off yet because Alakazam can get out prioritized with a stab super effective Sucker Punch for the one-hit KO. Magmortar comes out and is threatening an Aura Sphere, so I switch to Crobat, who takes it quite well. We pivot with U-turn to do some chip damage and bring in for Alligator on a Fire Blast that burns. burns. But a sheer force boosted, life orb boosted waterfall is still enough to get the KO. Octillery comes out next holding the choice scarf and is most likely going for energy ball, so we switch to Meganium, who takes next to nothing. And then a stab Giga Drain isn't quite enough for the KO, but because energy ball is doing such pitiful damage, we can take the KO on the following turn with a draining kiss and get back to almost full HP. This sends in Rhydon, which, let's be honest, did anyone think he would survive a Giga Drain? But now Toxicroak is out and is quite threatening because they can set up Sword Stance and has that focus sash strategy, which almost guarantees them the ability to do so. I hope I'm baiting a gunk shot, so I switch to Crobat, who takes it quite well. And Acrobatics breaks his sash as he just sets up a Sword Stance. And this is where I know I'm in range of a Sucker Punch. So I switch to Typhlosion, who actually takes a resisted gunk shot for massive damage. And I wish I would have planned this better because Typhlosion is holding a Choice Scarf, which means that we lock ourselves into Calm Mind and can't change our move. And while we are able to stall him out of all 5 Sucker Punch PP, it would be nice to be able to finish this fight with picking another move. But because we're locked in, I make the switch back to Crobat on the 5th Sucker Punch, and then he can outspeed and KO with an Acrobatics. Maybe I should have just done that the first time? Kind of a messy fight, but at least we're able to keep our entire team intact as we head to our next destination. And after we release the trio of late Guardians, we need to make our way back to Mount Coronet for probably the most difficult stretch of the game. And on our way up there, I had to watch 3 different video guides just to find this entrance. Was it just me, or was this place hard for you to find too? Anyways, we make it up to Spear Pillar for one of the scariest battles this game has to offer. Both Mars and Jupiter have 6 Pokemon each, making this a 12v12 double battle with my rival Barry. And as we've seen before, he can be quite unpredictable. I mean, look at this. He starts with a Delibird of all things. Are you even trying to help me win? But he does surprise me and flinches Mars's Crobat as Sableye tries to flinch mine. But they didn't get the memo that we don't flinch with Inner Focus, so we can just OHKO her Crobat with a single Acrobatics. Electivire comes out and I obviously can't stay in against an electric type, so after getting burned with a Will-O-Wisp, we U-turn into Steelix, who just dodges a Rock Slide. But Delibird isn't so lucky. See ya, King. After taking a measly Shadow Sneak and an accurate Rock Slide, Steelix can get his first KO of the match with the Body Press. The 40th Bronzong of the run comes out. I mean, seriously, how many of these things do they have? And after failing to KO them with the Body Press, they take out Barry's Vileplume with a Zen Headbutt. Barry can't lose too many Pokemon here, otherwise it's going to be a 1 versus 2, and I can definitely be put in a rough position. But to my surprise, Gengar comes out and gets a KO with a Shadow Ball as I just whiff a Body Press into Sableye. Oops. Kangaskhan comes out, who again has Parental Bond, and Sucker Punches into Gengar for the instant KO. And after getting burned, Steelix does some pitiful damage with Bulldoze. And we don't even get the speed drop due to our sheer force ability. And then Barry sends out a Metagross? How do you go from Delibird to Metagross? Anyways, Jupiter switches Sableye for Gengar and Kangaskhan uses Surf? That does next to nothing, coming off a base special attack of 40. Then Steelix actually manages to pick up the KO with the Body Press, and Barry proceeds to complete the double knockout this turn with a Meteor Mash. Now Tangrowth and Yamega enter the field, and I'm thinking the best plan of action is to get Typhlosion out. And I finally get a prediction right because not only does Yanmega protect, but Tangrowth just whiffs a Focus Miss straight into Typhlosion. And even with the speed boost from Yanmega, our Choice Scarf Typhlosion still outspeeds to pick up the KO on Tangrowth and bring Yanmega down to their sash. They do get off an Air Slash before getting Ice Punch to the face, but I wasn't planning on staying in after this turn anyways. Probopass and Mars's signature Fat Cat make their appearance next, which means that Mars is down to her last Pokemon. So I switch Typhlosion out for Crobat, who takes minimal damage on a knockoff due to not holding an item. I U-turn into Purugly to maximize as much damage as possible to turn this fight into a 2v1. I bring out Steelix, who hardwalls both of their Pokemon, and then our friend Metagross goes down to an Earth Power after breaking Probopass's Focus Sash. Well done, good soldier. Electrode comes out with the ability Electric Surge. Pretty cool upgrade if you ask me. Probopass sees the KO on Steelix with an Earth Power, so I pivot yet again into Crobat, who gets in for free as Electrode is able to take the KO on Purugly with a Thunderbolt. This makes the fight much less threatening now. And yes, of course I U-turn once again back into Steelix, who gets in basically for free on a Power Gem. It's the Crobat and Steelix show, I guess. I'm banking on Barry taking the KO on Probopass, so I make the free switch into Feraligatr to set up for the rest of the fight. Gastrodon comes out, who uses Protect for literally no reason that I can figure out, and just stalls their own fate for 1 turn as the double up takes them out. Sableye comes back, who delays his fate by a turn with a Fake Out, but Electrode gets the paralysis with a Thunderbolt. And now they go down to another double up. Now Jupiter's disgusting Skuntank comes out, and I thought they'd go for a Protect to activate their Flare Boost ability, but they actually just use Sludge Bomb onto Electrode as I set up a Dragon Dance. I guess it was my turn to delay the fight, but on the next turn we're able to outspeed and take yet another KO with a Waterfall. After the fight, Barry thankfully restores recharge our HP for what's coming ahead. But I'm just gonna let this next cutscene play to give some credit to the Luminescent Platinum team and their amazing work. Cyrus would look much less threatening if he wasn't a chibi, but somehow, someway, even after the late Guardians were released, he still finds a way to harness the power of Palkia and Dialga as Giratina comes up from the distortion world. How cool of a shot is that? Oh, hey Cynthia. No, I'm not scared. Yeah, I'll head down there, of course. Oh, now? Okay. As cool of a shot as this is the gauntlet of all gauntlets because there are 3 fights in a row, and honestly, the last fight is bullshit. He starts with a level 70 Dialga and Palkia. And mind you, the level cap right now is only 60, but I planned for this. Hitmontop starts with a fake out to immobilize Dialga for a turn, and I gave Ampharos a choice scarf to Draco drop the absolute shit out of Palkia. I know for sure my little Amphi is baiting a Roar of Time, so I switched to Meganium, who gets in for free as Hitmontop can do some massive damage with close combat. And on the next turn, a combination of Draining Kiss and a close combat is enough to take down Phase 1. Phase 2 begins immediately after Phase 1. Duh. And he leads with an intimidating Houndoom. That's a much better ability for this Pokemon, right? We outspeed with our Choice Scarf and Volt Switch into Typhlosion on a resisted critical hit Flare Blitz that does way more damage than I thought. I think we're baiting a Sucker Punch now, so I try to get the free switch into Hitmontop, but we come in on a resisted Throat Chop that still does massive damage. A fake out nearly takes this thing out, but we're able to follow it up with a priority Bullet Punch for the first KO of the fight. His Choice Banded Crobat comes out now and sees a kill with Brave Bird, so I get Ampharos back out there, who takes about a quarter. And after taking a second one, we're able to KO with a Thunderbolt. His Guts Raticate comes out, and I think he'll protect to get burned by the Flame Orb, and we finally call something correctly. The only real move he has to hit us is Sucker Punch, so we take to our degenerate strategy again to stall him out of all 5 Sucker Punches by using Calm Mind. And no, I didn't learn my lesson from last time because Typhlosion is still holding the Choice Scarf, so after we get his 4th Sucker Punch, we have to switch to Hitmontop. Of course, we go for the obligatory fake out for some extra chip damage, and with the burn damage really stacking up and some careful switching, he's finally in range for a Scorching Sands. But Cyrus has the 1000 IQ play to use Protect and let even more burn damage rack up. This further guarantees the KO on the next turn with a Scorching Sands, but he even tries to go for a double Protect. What are you doing? I used Scorching Sands because I thought Probopass would come out next, but of course it's Honchkrow who's immune to it. So I switched for Alligator in on a resisted Foul Play that does way more than I thought. Kind of the theme of the run, I guess. But a single Ice Punch is all we need to take them down. Take a bow, Sir Honchkrow. Now Probopass makes his way out and makes the misplay of the Sentry by breaking his own sturdy and using Pain Split on my switch as we go for a Scorching Sands. We don't quite get the KO, but Probopass literally has no way to touch me. And we still come out with more HP than we had due to his Pain Splitting shenanigans. But now his scariest Pokemon, Weavile, comes out. And man, I wish I had access to one of these things, and he's even more threatening than last time. The first thing I do is switch into Crobat, who again isn't holding an item, to take much less damage from a knockoff, but it still does way more damage than I'd like. I debated on going for a U-turn, but in the off chance Cyrus uses an Ice Shard, I can kiss my Crobat goodbye. So instead, I just make the hard switch into Feraligatr, revealing I made the right decision. Or did I? Because on the next turn, Cyrus knocks off our Life Orb, which results in Feraligatr barely missing out on the KO. And now we're in a sticky situation. With Weavile's coverage, none of my Pokemon can live 2 hits from this thing, and I'm not sure how to get this last hit on him. So the first thing I do is go to Ampharos, who thankfully takes a resisted Aerial Ace quite well, and then pivot to Meganium on an Ice Shard. Probably should have just started with that. And thank goodness we can out-prioritize with Triage and a Draining Kiss, and this thing goes down once and for all. But I can't celebrate for too long because the Distortion world isn't over. Phase 3 has us taking on a level 100 Giratina. And I'm not sure if this thing was in the docs, but I definitely didn't know that this fight was happening, and to top it all off, I can't just run or throw a Master Ball at it, so we're here fighting this thing. He outspeeds my Choice Scarf Ampharos to get off an Aura Sphere, so I switch to Meganium for free. And after taking a resisted Aura Sphere, a Moonblast does like nothing. I don't really know what moves this thing has, but all they reveal is Aura Sphere and Earth Power, which means I guess Meganium was the perfect choice for this fight. And luck is on our side because even after 3 Earth Powers, they don't get a single special defense drop. How about that for some good luck? And it does come extremely close, but with Draining Kiss restoring 75% of the damage dealt and Giratina having one of the highest HP stats in the game, we're able to take this thing down in 6 attacks. But then I just wake up next to Cynthia as if this was all a dream. Not really sure what happened, but I can only guess what happened with me and Cynthia last night, know what I mean? But I'll tell you what's not funny. As soon as we arrive to our next destination in Sunny Shore City, Flint challenges us to a battle. I knew that he was going to talk to us, but no way did I know that he was going to battle us, which means that I'm completely unprepared for this fight. Surely this doesn't spell the end for one of my most beloved teammates, right? He leads with the drought camera up and I lead with my trusty Crobat. A U-turn straight into Feraligatr on a Fire Blast, which burns. Again, that's the second time in a row a Fire Blast not only hit, but also got the burn. But good thing we still have our life orb because we're still able to take this thing out with a quad effective waterfall in the sun. Flareon comes out now and I've learned my lesson against this thing, so I switch to Typhlosion for free on a close combat as the Toxic Orb activates, increasing their attack even more. Great. I'm not really sure what I want to do here and I feel the need to sack something to gain some momentum, so of course I just get Hitmontop out there, the most expendable team member at this point, but they just completely miss the play rough. And of course I have to get some chip damage with an obligatory fake out not only as the sun goes down, but the chip damage from the Toxic is really starting to add up and I see my way out. I use Detect to burn another turn and rack up even more poison damage, and Flint reveals they're going for a play rough. So now I switch to Crobat, who still takes a pretty decent amount of damage for resisting it, but then an Acrobatics is all I need to take out the Fire Dog Cat thing with all the previous chip damage. Magcargo comes out now, who's rocking the Shell Smash Wide Herb combo that I used against Aaron, so I U-turn back into Hitmontop as they just use a soft Power Gem. Obligatory fake out, of course, and then a close combat to almost finish this thing off as they go for a Shell Smash. If that happened to turn earlier, I might be a little scared, but with such a low speed stat, Hitmontop is still faster after the speed boost, and we can get the KO with another close combat, yet again with another defense boost. Sun Wukong comes out now, and I use Detect to scout what they're going for, and it turns out they're trying to use a Flare Blitz. After the defense boost, I think I can take one, and we do, especially with the help of our Citrus Berry. And we're able to take yet another KO and get another defense boost with the close combat. Houndoom comes out next, and of course I want to Detect to see what they're going for, and it looks like he's wanting to use Fire Blast. After all our defense boosts, I decide that we can probably take it, and we're right, which helps us take yet another KO with another close combat, but this is where things start to get a little bit messy. Magmortar is his ace, comes out now and has the ability Mega Launcher and reveals that he wants to use the Magma Storm. And for some reason, I make the misplay of the century and let Crobat come in, and he gets taken out by a Choice Specs boosted Magma Storm. One of my best Pokemon, a great speedy pivot offering fast U-turns and 110 base power stab acrobatics, gone because of a careless mistake. But we need to finish this fight and avenge him. So we get Typhlosion out there, who does a bit over half of the Scorching Sands as he lands yet another Magma Storm. Isn't this move supposed to be 75% accurate? And then it does recoil damage? Is it just me, or is that not supposed to happen to fire types? Whatever, but we're able to get the KO with one last Scorching Sands, but that doesn't get us our good friend back. As sad as I am about losing Crobat, he's not the best choice for an electric gym, and I'm not sure he'd come to the Elite Four either. But with 3 more rival fights to go, he sure would have been a great option to have. So with the electric gym ahead of us, we make the time to grab one last encounter, Gliscor, who should be an amazing pick for us with 2 immunities, a monstrous defense stat, and the ability Poison Heal, which not only prevents other status conditions, but also heals an 1/8 of our maximum HP every turn, making him a fantastic defensive wall. Just don't ask him to take an ice move. So after chasing down the final gym leader of Sinnoh, who is obviously not at their gym, that's all 8 gym leaders not in their gym. Is that a record? We prepare for the fight against Volkner by finishing the gym puzzle and attempt to get our 8th gym badge. Unbeknownst to me, it's a double battle. Great, didn't expect that at all, but he leads with a Surfing Raichu and a Rotom Freeze. I lead with Typhlosion and Meganium. I immediately switch Meganium for Mamoswine to not get annihilated by a Blizzard, but Typhlosion is able to pick up yet another double KO with Eruption. This move is busted. Lantern and Manectric come out, so to save Typhlosion from a water move, I switch in Meganium, who takes a Volt Switch from both Lantern and Manectric as Volkner pivots into Luxray and Manectric again for the double Intimidate. And of course, this procs Luxray's Flame Orb to activate their Guts ability to increase their attack. Honestly, that was quite the pivot and I'm jealous of it. Well done, Volkner. I pivot Meganium out to Gliscor, who takes a massive overheat, and after Mamoswine takes a stab Sucker Punch from Luxray, since they have the Dark type added into this game, he unleashes a massive Earthquake that does about half to Luxray but KOs Manectric through 2 Intimidates. Now Lantern comes out threatening a water move onto my Mamoswine, so I switch into Meganium, who takes it quite well. And Gliscor dodges an Ice Fang by burrowing underground, which also results in more Poison Heal recovery. And it's at this moment I realize I'm in quite the pickle. I'm probably going to lose a Pokemon, and I need to make a decision. It's between Gliscor and Meganium, but I can't lose my starter this run. We've been through everything together. So I prioritized taking the KO on Luxray with a super effective Draining Kiss, and to my dismay, a dig is not enough to take Lantern down, which means that our newest team member goes down to a quad effective Ice Beam. Your run was short, Gliscor, but you were pivotal in helping us win this battle. So with some furious rage, I send Typhlosion out to be next to his Jotonian counterpart, and in dominating fashion, Meganium can get the KO with a Giga Drain as Typhlosion lets yet another Eruption rip for not only the one-hit KO, but our 8th gym badge. It hits heavy knowing that we lost another teammate, a young, promising young lad that had Elite Four potential. So we have to finish this run for them. Sneasel, Ladian, Crobat, Gliscor, they want us to finish this run and not just make it to the Elite Four, but become champions, not let their deaths go in vain. So that's exactly what we aim to do. Off, Jasmine, I have a lady already. We travel up the waterfall to our last rest stop and enter the final obstacle of the game. And after venturing to the side quest where we're forced to battle Dawn one last time, we run into the final stat trainer of the game, Marley, the speed specialist. Bad timing, Marley. We just lost a teammate and we don't intend on losing another. She leads with a Starmie and I lead with a Choice Scarf Lantern. We Volt Switch to bring in Meganium on a Psychic and then can out prioritize on the next turn with a Giga Drain for a little bit of recovery and the KO. Crobat comes in and sees the kill with a Cross Poison, so we send in Steelix for free. And after missing a Hypnosis and desperately using a Brave Bird, they go down to a series of Iron Heads. Sceptile comes out and I thought he would see the KO with a Focus Mist, but instead just goes for an Endure as I switch to Meganium, as if Steelix could really do that much damage to him anyways. Meganium always hardwalls Sceptile in this game and can take the KO with a few Draining Kisses to get back to almost full HP. But now Electrode comes in and fearing an explosion, I switch back to Steelix, but he just sets up a light screen that'll last for 8 turns now with the held Light Clay. Great. But he finally does go for the explosion and it does like 20 damage. To my dismay, another Weavile comes in as if I haven't seen enough of these already and threatens huge damage with a Low Kick. But we prepped for this. A Chople Berry greatly reduces the damage and we can counter back with the quad effective Body Press for the instant one-shot. This Pokemon has caused me so much pain in this run, so I hope that's the last of them. But now one of our biggest threats, Arcanine, comes out and my strategy to deal with them, albeit isn't the best. But the first thing we do is to switch into Lantern on a Flare Blitz so Arcanine can take some recoil damage. We still have the Choice Scarf attached, so we outspeed with the Volt Switch for even more recoil damage as he lands a close combat onto Meganium, which lowers both of his defense stats. With one more switch back to Lantern on a resisted Flare Blitz, the defense drops combined with the recoil damage allow us to take the KO through Light Screen with a Bubble Beam. Bet you haven't seen that move in a while, huh? But now that Marley is done, we have one last battle before arriving at the Pokemon League, and it's against Dawn. Her team is filled with some of the biggest threats that we've seen up to this point, and I hope that I've prepped enough for this fight. She leads with Alakazam and I lead with Umbreon. You probably already know what happens here, but a Sucker Punch gets the clean KO. Then the Focus Sash wearing Lopunny comes out, so I switch to Meganium almost for free on a Fake Out. We then proceed to do huge damage with the Draining Kiss, but she does almost just as much with an Iron Tail. But Meganium is too goated for this and takes the KO with another Triage boosted Draining Kiss. Another Flareon comes out, so I ironically switch to Feraligatr on the incoming Flare Blitz that still does quite a bit of damage, but thankfully doesn't get the burn. You know I'm well versed at fighting this thing, so I know they see the KO with a close combat, so I go to Typhlosion who come in for free and take the KO with a Shadow Ball. Oh, come on! Well, that didn't take him out, but the recoil damage from Wild Charge did. Mamoswine comes out now and is a big problem because he sees a KO with both Earthquake and Stone Edge. Both can do massive damage to my entire team. So again, I get my most expendable team member out there, Hitmontop on a resisted critical hit Stone Edge. Yep, obligatory Fake Out for some chip, and I totally thought we outsped, but somehow we didn't, and we lose our Hitmontop to another critical hit Stone Edge. I know for sure I wasn't bringing him to the Elite Four, but it doesn't mean that I wanted to see him go. So I send Feraligatr in to avenge his fallen ally, but he connects with the third Stone Edge in a row? What happened to this move being called Stone Miss? Good riddance, you overweight mammoth. Clefable comes out now and threatens a Moonblast, so we switch to Typhlosion who takes it reasonably well, but we are starting to get a bit low on health. We use Shadow Ball to bring her down to about half, but she uses Calm Mind and has leftovers. So that means our next Shadow Ball does noticeably less damage and she can heal back with Soft Boiled. Uh-oh. But we have no choice at this point, so we go for another Shadow Ball that thankfully gets a special defense drop, and it all comes down to if we we can live another Moonblast. And we survive on just 15 HP. That was way too close. But thankfully, we can get rid of this fairy once and for all. Oh, great. Yeah, get the critical hit when it doesn't even matter. And now her last Pokemon, Empoleon, comes out, and he can literally use any move at this point since I'm sure anything he has KOs us. So we switch into our bulkiest Pokemon who just takes a Grass Knot on the switch. I feel like we're probably baiting a Hydro Cannon at this point, so we go to Ampharos who resists it, and he takes it quite well. On his recharge turn, we find out that not only are we faster, but we get the paralysis. So that means that, oh, what's that? A Custap Berry? No, I didn't see that. And now he outspeeds and uses Ice Beam to bring us down to just 7 HP. So Ampharos can finally bring this thing down with one last Thunderbolt. That was a wild battle. Just look at our team after that. There's only 6 battles left in this game, and each one is getting increasingly harder. We've lost a teammate in 3 consecutive battles, and if we keep this up, there's no way we'll be able to enter the league, let alone beat it. So we take our time getting back through Victory Road, carefully calculating each battle to ensure that we don't have another close call, kind of. But at least we make it through without another death. We've arrived at the Pokemon League, and it's here where we find out if we're able to take Attempt 1 the distance. We Theorycraft for a while to make sure this next fight goes as smooth as possible, and we challenge our rival Barry to one last battle. He leads with an Ursaring, and I lead with my arch nemesis Mamoswine. With a held wide lens, we're able to land an Icicle Crash for the instant one-hit KO. There's only a 1% chance to miss there, but if we miss, we're dead to a close combat. Electrode comes out next and lands a huge Choice Specs boosted Energy Ball. I'm still not familiar with your game, Electrode, but we are able to retaliate with Earthquake for the Oko. We probably should have switched in Meganium because now his Feraligatr comes out and we're baiting some type of random move. I'm banking on a Liquidation or a Night Slash, but of course we get hit with an Ice Punch. What was that? Anyways, we go for a Draining Kiss to get back to full health, and then we take another Ice Punch. Huh? Weird. And we get the KO with another Draining Kiss on the next turn. Now his Vileplume comes out and probably sees the KO with a Sludge Bomb, so I switch to Typhlosion to resist it. And of course he gets poisoned. Although I'm being a bit dramatic because an Eruption is still enough for the one-shot. Flygon comes in next, and I'm hoping he wants to try to drop a Draco on me, so I switch to Meganium who's immune to it. And this goat is able to get the critical hit on a Draining Kiss on the following turn for the one hit and get back to full health. Triage Meganium is so broken. Infernape is out next, and we need to do a bit of careful pivoting for him. So we first start by going to Feraligatr on a resisted Fire Punch, and then back to Meganium on a baited close combat. We need Infernape to take Life Orb Recoil 4 times and get 2 defense drops from close combat in order to guarantee the KO on him. So after Meganium switches in on the second rotation, she can outspeed with another Draining Kiss to always get the KO. A little nifty maneuvering, and Meganium is proving to me that she might be the MVP of the run so far. Let me know what you think. But with that battle out of the way, it's time to decide who to bring for the Elite Four. And I decide we're going to bring, in my opinion, the 6 most iconic Johto Pokemon to finish this run. We're bringing Feraligatr, the Water Dark starter with the Sheer Force Life Orb boosted combo. Hisuian Typhlosion because those Choice Scarf Eruptions have been completely busted this run. Of course, Meganium to round out the starter choices, who's Grass Fairy because that triage ability is so good. Steelix, a massive defensive ball holding the Assault Vest with 2 immunities. Ampharos, whose one job is to drop as many Dracos as possible. And Tyranitar, the pseudo-legendary of the region that can control the battle with its Intimidate or Sandstorm ability. So with one last check of our badges, we walk into the Elite Four expecting to finish this run in style. Aaron is first, and his bug types are no joke. We get Team 2, and his lead Fortress is wanting to set up Toxic Spikes, but I know how dangerous that can be. So I lead Tyranitar, who uses Taunt so he can't use Pain Split? I don't know, so I use Crunch on the next turn to break his Sturdy, and I definitely thought I'd do more damage than that, and his Euro Ball does a little bit more than I expected even after our Intimidate. So now I switch to Typhlosion, who comes in on a fairly weak Euro Ball, and with his Sturdy broken, we can take the KO with an Eruption. Flygon comes out next, and it feels a little bit like Deja Vu because we switched to Meganium on a Whiff Draco Meteor, but this time we don't get the critical hit KO with Draining Kiss. Instead, we take quite a bit from Boom Burst, and as we go for a Draining Kiss on the next turn, Aaron switches into Beedrill. It's actually quite nice because now his Focus Sash means nothing. Sometimes it feels like the AI is switching into their own demise, because strangely, his Beedrill doesn't have any poison type moves, so I'm not sure the point of that. So I just switched to Ampharos, who has Fluffy to take reduced damage, and she nearly takes half from a Mega Horn. I understand it now. I know I can live another non-crit, so I risk it for literally no reason and get a slow Volt Switch into Typhlosion, who can come in without taking any damage. And on the next turn, we just let an Eruption rip for the KO. Flygon comes back out, and being part bug type in this game isn't helping him here because now they take neutral damage from another Eruption. Beautifly comes out and is another holder of the Focus Sash and knows the best setup move in the game, Quiver Dance. This can be dangerous with a Focus Sash intact, so of course we just first start by using another Eruption. She does indeed dance for us, but with our held Choice Scarf, we still outspeed her speed boost, and Typhlosion gets his 4th KO of the match with another Eruption. Ladian comes out now, oh the memories, and is holding a Choice Scarf, so they're able to outspeed and hit us with a Thunder Punch, but disappointingly an Eruption is still enough for the KO. I was hoping it wouldn't be since Eruption's power is based off the amount of HP remaining, and I wanted to switch into something else before Drapion comes in to abuse his held Choice Band that locks him into a singular move. So we switch into plan B and pivot Tyranitar in, who not only resists the hit but can get off and Intimidate to lower their attack. And then I just switch into Steelix for no reason to finish the job because he's my favorite Pokemon and I want to guarantee some type of success in the Elite Four. And you'd think he's holding a Focus Sash because look at the way he survives on what must be 1 HP. They're just taunting me now. So after one more delayed turn, we're able to take the KO and defeat the first member of the Elite Four. Bertha, the ground type specialist, is next, and I decide the best counter to all of her teams is Feraligatr. We get team number 4 and she leads with Rhyperior. Even with all that defense and the ability Solid Rock to reduce the power of super effective moves, Feraligatr is still able to get the one-shot. Torterra comes out next because they probably see a KO with Wood Hammer, but I see a kill with a quad effective Ice Punch. So that brings Nidoking out and they can outspeed and KO with a Sheer Force Life Orb boosted Thunderbolt. Sounds familiar, right? So we switch into Ampharos first to bait an Ice Beam because our counter for this Pokemon is Typhlosion. It still does way more than I'd like and we probably could have gotten frozen and we're definitely risking a crit, but we go for a Shadow Ball that still isn't quite enough for the KO, and Thunderbolt brings us deep into the red. Thank goodness that didn't crit or get the paralysis, so we can take the KO and finish this thing off with just one last Shadow Ball. Now she sends in Steelix next, and I wish I could stay in and just use Eruption, but we're choice locked with our Choice Scarf that we needed to outspeed her Nidoking. So the way I deal with it now is first switch to Tyranitar to lower their attack with an Intimidate and dodge the Earthquake with the held Air Balloon. An Earthquake of our own does surprisingly little damage for being super effective, and Iron Head does an insane amount of damage, especially after an Intimidate. I definitely thought this would go differently and Tyranitar would be the one dealing the huge damage, so I go into my backup plan, my Steelix, who is also on an Air Balloon. I probably should have done that first since my Air Balloon seems to not matter at all because it gets popped as soon as we get in. Great, but my Steelix is faster and uses Bulldoze to bring him into the yellow, and he hits us with an Earthquake that we would have always survived even if it crit. So with one last Bulldoze, we win the mirror match and Steelix takes his second KO of the Elite Four. That's really all the hard Pokemon in this fight because as Whiscash comes out, I send in Meganium to finish this fight. She's able to KO Whiscash with the Giga Drain through a Rindo Berry that reduces the damage of grass type moves, which means that her Quagsire next stands no chance to survive a Triage boosted Giga Drain. That's 2 Elite Four members down and still deathless. We enter Flint's arena and stare him and his duck right in the face and let him know we're here to seek revenge for taking our dear Crobat away from us. I lead with Feraligatr against him this time and Flint actually does us a huge favor. Even though Feraligatr was dead to a crit, he goes right into his Infernape to take the waterfall instead. My plan for dealing with him involved risking my sweet baby Ampharos, so this works out way better. Arcanine comes out and intimidates us and I'm concerned I'm gonna get picked off by an extreme speed, so I switch to Tyranitar, who sets up the sand with the Sandstream ability. I change his ability between fights in case Flint tried to set up the sun. And not only does this boost our special defense, but we're holding the Assault Vest to take our special defense through the roof. We go for a super effective Rock Climb as a Rock type move in this game, and I'm actually disappointed we didn't get the one shot and he lands a pretty soft Wild Charge. But we are able to finish him off with one more Rock Climb and Flint sends in a non-Hisuian Typhlosion. He does outspeed to get off an Earth Power that does reduced damage due to our defensive setup, but a Rock Climb is enough this time for a one-hit KO. His Rotom Heat makes his way back in. I'm sure wants to Volt Switch again, so I just bring in Steelix for free. I have a feeling he's going to be switching, so I use Bulldoze that totally would have missed if he stayed in due to their Levitate ability, but instead I end up catching Houndoom for the one-hit KO. That's the second Pokemon he's switched into their demise, but revenge is tasting oh so sweet right now. Rotom Heat comes back in again, so I switch into my tankiest option, but Rotom just misses. The really really poor showing from Flint right now. He does manage to connect on the second turn, but it doesn't do that much, and a rock climb again is enough for the one shot. And now his ace Magmortar comes out, the one who took our precious Crobat. And I bet we're baiting an Aura Sphere here, and since he's holding the Choice Scarf and is Flint's last Pokemon, we can switch into Typhlosion, who is completely immune and Flint can't do anything about it. So we slowly and surely take the KO with two powerful Shadow Balls, the first of which lowers his special defense. And with the second Shadow Ball straight to his face, we let him know that this one was for Crobat. Probably our cleanest and luckiest fight yet, but we can't celebrate for too long because Lucian and his Psychic types are next. The only Pokemon that hasn't gotten any action yet is Ampharos. That's who I decide to lead with to give her some Elite Four action. Lucian's Espeon sets up a Light Screen and Ampharos completely whiffs the opportunity to drop a Draco. I gave you a chance and this is what you do? I know we're always saved to at least one Dazzling Gleam with our Held Assault Vest that I thought I gave her, so after barely surviving, Draco Meteor doesn't even do half. I know Light Screen is up, but that was pitiful. So instead of being able to slow Volt Switch like I wanted to, we need to hard switch into Typhlosion, who comes in on a very soft Dazzling Gleam and can take the KO with a Choice Scarf Shadow Ball. Lucian sends out his Jinx next, who's holding the Choice Specs, and I think they're about to lock into a Shadow Ball. So I make the switch to Tyranitar, who actually comes in on a Psyshock that he's completely immune to. I go for Crunch, and yet another Elite Four member sacrifices one of their most threatening Pokemon. Lucian sends in his Alakazam to take the Crunch instead of just allowing his Jinx to go down. Imagine sacrificing your Alakazam for a Jinx. Medicham comes out now, and I know he sees the KO with the quad effective high jump kick, so I switch back into Typhlosion, who is immune with her Ghost typing, and he takes half his health in recoil damage for missing. Having a Ghost type in a Nuzlocke is absolutely busted. So after taking the KO with another Shadow Ball, Jinx comes back out, so I try to repeat what happened last time, but unfortunately, Jinx uses Shadow Ball this time as I get Tyranitar in. And after a second Shadow Ball that gets the special defense drop, we take the clean KO with the Crunch. Slowbro comes in, and I doubt we can live a Scald after the defense drop, so we just switch into Meganium to resist the hit. A Giga Drain does do over half, and Slowbro uses Future Sight that will never have the chance to do anything, because after another Giga Drain gets the KO, we send in Tyranitar against his Gallade, who is immune to not only the incoming Psycho Cut, but also the lingering Future Sight attack. But he's definitely threatening a quad effective close combat, so of course we switch into Meganium, who not only tanks it well, but can do massive damage with a Draining Kiss after the defense drops. And after one last futile attempt to deal some damage, Meganium can take the KO to win us our fourth battle against the Elite Four. As we approach this final room, I think of all the sacrifices made to get to this point. We're not just here to enter the Hall of Fame, we're here for justice, to redeem the fallen comrades that have given their lives for us to get to this point. And what better way to honor those that have fallen before us than to defeat the most powerful trainer in the world, Cynthia. No matter how scary each of Cynthia's teams might be, I'm reminded of a comforting yet chilling thought. The run ends here. Cut the shit, Cynthia. You had your chance. Cynthia leads with Lucario, and I'm immediately on the back foot by leading with Steelix. Not a good start, but I can fix it by pivoting to Typhlosion on the incoming close combat that we're completely immune to and take the KO with another Choice Scarf boosted Eruption. Then Cynthia does me a huge favor and sends in her Glaceon, who just gets blasted with another Eruption. Not sure what that choice was about. And now her Gastrodon comes out, so I send in Meganium as my counter, who comes in on a pretty soft Earth Power. A stab quad effective Giga Drain is unfortunately not enough to take the KO on Gastrodon, as she uses an Ice Beam that freezes. No way. The reality is Meganium needs to unfreeze to avoid being taken out because she is my only counter for Garchomp. None of my other Pokemon can take care of that thing, and if Meganium doesn't unfreeze, this run is over. So we stay in for another frozen turn as Gastrodon just gets some health back with Recover. And on the next turn, we click Giga Drain and remain frozen. Gastrodon does huge damage with an Ice Beam and reveals that we have just one more turn to unfreeze or it's game over. So we click Giga Drain and she unfreezes and takes the KO with a Giga Drain that crits. That's it, Meganium. Show Cynthia why you're the GOAT. Togekiss comes out next, and because this thing is so bulky, we need to get some damage off before switching. We do need to risk Meganium to a crit, but it's the last battle and the only option I have. So after surviving, we then switch to Ampharos, who needs to take an Air Slash and a Dazzling Gleam before retaliating with a Volt Switch that can get the KO with the chip damage from earlier. This allows us to get Typhlosion in for free against her second to last Pokemon, Lopunny. She sexily stalls for a turn by hitting us with a Fake Out and her Scrappy ability, but she does delay the inevitable because even with the chip damage, an Eruption is still enough to get the one-hit KO. And sadly, this is the last Eruption KO that Typhlosion will be getting in this run. Because as Cynthia's Ace Garchomp comes out, I know how important every bit of chip damage is to ensure that we get the W. So with a heavy heart, we click Eruption one last time to actually do some respectable damage just to get KO'd by an Earthquake. Thank you, Typhlosion. You were pivotal in this run. Now I send in Tyranitar as an insurance policy to get off an Intimidate to reduce the damage we're about to take, and we're able to get off a Crunch that nearly KOs Cynthia's Ace. But Garchomp is very fast and able to KO one more of my Pokemon with another Earthquake. Thank you, Tyranitar. And with all the chip damage from earlier, we're able to send in our Giant Killer, and with one last Triage boosted Draining Kiss, we take the KO to not only win us the battle, but to win us this run. As we enter the Hall of Fame, I'm filled with nostalgia to my first ever playthrough of Pokemon Silver, where I chose Chikorita and we conquered the regions of Johto and Kanto together. Redemption is an understatement, and Meganium proved to be the absolute MVP of this run, and I can't wait to choose them in Legends EA. If you enjoyed the run and would like to see another, please consider liking the video and maybe even subscribing.